Welcome to the Wild Type Podcast. I'm Neptune the Chameleon.
I'm Lyssa Lizards.
And we're your reptile girlies.
We're getting real good at that intro.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, 20 plus episodes in.
You would figure that after enough times.
I think we've nailed it.
Okay, I'm so glad you said that because I'm going to pull out a pun. Speaking of nailed it.
You did. I literally noticed this at when you walked in the house because you're wearing such black and white. The pink really popped. It really popped.
For anyone who's listening, can't see them. Yeah. But I want to bring this up with you and put this out for all of our podcast girlies. This is not dip. This is
you're kidding.
A different type. It's called hard gel or extreme gel. And it's a different type of gel. And it's so I was in Colorado, which we can talk about that, visiting one of my girlfriends. And she's like, who put me on to dip? And she's like, you gotta try this. So it's supposed to be just as durable, if not more durable than dip, but it's thinner. So it's more like a natural nail feeling than the thickness of dip nails.
So I will say the thickness of dip nails has driven me a little bit crazy for a long time until I found my most recent nail girl and she files them down pretty thin.
Yeah.
So mine aren't obnoxious, but that is still thinner than what I've got. So I like that.
And this is the other kicker. When you go and get them redone, they don't have to soak them and grind them off. They basically just fill them.
That is my nightmare.
Like they do with acrylics. And I've never had acrylic soap, but they don't have to soak them and grind them, and then your nails are all frail and whatever, you know what I'm saying? So they just go in and they'll take off the color, so then you can put whatever color or design you want on top of it. But then amazing. They don't have to go through the whole process.
That's fantastic.
So I tried it.
I love that.
Okay, so to hop into the main topic for today's episode, this is going to be a fun one. This is going to be a funny one because we're talking about our story times of when our reptiles have escaped.
We all have them. There's no shame in it.
Don't think you're better than us because it hasn't happened to you, because it's going to happen.
It will happen.
It will happen. It's just, obviously, we take as many precautions,
of course,
as we can. But
also highly important to note that neither of us have any venomous species or anything like that. So just important disclaimer. Obviously, we take all precautions, but worst thing that can happen if one of our animals gets out is we lose them or they get hurt somehow.
Knock over a plant or something.
Yeah. It's so just to throw that out there.
Yeah. Obviously, it would take even more precautions if we were dealing with venomous species. But
times 10, yeah.
You have quite a few. I have quite a few.
Yes.
We want to talk about it, because if nothing else, this is entertainment for you guys. And maybe you can learn what not to do from our dumb mistakes.
Yeah, because they are very dumb.
Do you want to start off, or should I?
I'm happy to. My first situation happened when I was 17 years old. So we are going on
you would have just had Charlie at that point then.
It was only Charlie, and he's obviously the one who escaped.
I wonder who it could be.
So this was way back. I had only had him for a year. He had he was little nugget, tiny nugget. And so he basically had an aquarium. He did not have a front opening enclosure.
As we've discussed.
Mistake number one. So pro tip, how to avoid it. Don't put them in top opening aquariums. But because it had previously actually been used as a freshwater aquarium, it had a hole in the top where the filter for the aquarium goes.
Oh, right. Yeah, because they have all the pumps and stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. And so it had one of those. And so he also had a driftwood branch in there, which, fun story, is still in his enclosure today. He's never had an enclosure without that driftwood branch. It's a driftwood branch from my dad. It's a whole thing.
A little sentimental.
Yes. Yeah. And so that branch was propped up against the corner, and my dumb little 17-year-old brain didn't realize that he had grown so much that while at the tippy top of that branch, he could reach the hole.
Oh.
I had no idea.
Oh, yes. I know what you're saying.
Because he was a baby.
That's something, though, to keep in mind. Yeah. It's just a little tidbit, and maybe we should do a future episode on this, but your the way you set up your enclosure for a baby
Yes.
may need
Adjusting.
alterations
Yes.
as they get older.
100%.
I'm thinking specifically with heat bulbs, right? And as their bodies get
Yes.
bigger and taller, then they're closer to their heat bulbs and can burn themselves.
With heat bulbs and with, potential escape situations.
Yeah, for sure.
So
his driftwood
yes, it was in the corner and it had always been there, but he had recently discovered that he was big enough to reach the top from that branch.
Wow.
And so I got woken up by one of my family members. I think it was like a Saturday morning. I was dead asleep and I got woken up by one of my family members freaking out because he had made his way all the way under my sister's bed.
Oh no.
And that means like the way our house is set up is that there's basically like my sister and I shared like one of those like Jack and Jill bathrooms. You know?
Oh, yes.
So we each had our own like little vanity area, but then we like shared the bathroom part. And so he had to have either walked all the way out our two doors down the hallway and into her room, or gone all the way through the Jack and Jill vanity, through the bathroom, and then through her vanity to get under her bed.
That's a journey either way.
He had a whole adventure and was under her bed, and I was like freaking out because like it was terrifying.
Yeah, because he's not supposed to be there.
No, it was very scary.
At least someone found him, and
yes, it was fine. Well, and there's always the fear that they could like get into something dangerous or like cut themselves or fall off something.
They're out in the world, all the terrain.
Yeah, I was freaking out, so I very quickly adjusted that branch.
Got it. Yeah, no, that's good.
That was a big one.
My first time having one of my reptiles escape was in my one-bedroom apartment. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I think I just had Neptune. I might have had Pluto too.
Okay.
But like Neptune was in my living room.
Yes.
And then my bedroom door was adjacent. Like my bedroom and living room shared a wall.
Yeah.
And so I would sleep with my bedroom door open. And so from my bed, I can see Neptune's enclosure if I have the door open. Right? I have a straight shot to his enclosure. And so I wake up and I'm like, whatever. And I look and you're like half asleep, right? And I look and I'm like, what? And I see this blob, like kind of by his enclosure. Turns out Neptune was on his misking nozzle, or tubing, I mean.
Like he was on the top of it, basically.
On the outside of the enclosure.
That's what I mean.
Mm-hmm. So he was just hanging out outside his enclosure. And I'm like, and nothing makes you up faster than seeing your chameleon like not in their enclosure. So I guess I had not like closed it all the way, which is another pro tip. The number one way to prevent your reptile from escaping is to close their enclosures.
Just, triple check it.
Very simply. And so he was just chilling there. And Neptune at the time was probably like 6-7 months old. Like he was still little. Yeah. And I'm newbie, right? Yeah. So like I don't have a lot of experience handling him or like how best to now like 6 years later, I'm totally chill with like handling him or getting him onto a stick.
Yes.
But
yeah, you've got that down now.
But then he was like climbing up to the top of his enclosure, and that's where their heat bulb is. And I was like,
no, that's scary. That's the scary part, because if they can get access to that heat bulb, then you really freak out.
Burn themselves or something. And I'm like, no.
No, I know.
Anyways, all was fine. So now I have my little nighttime routine. Before I go to bed, I check on everyone. Oh, yeah. Make sure everything's
there's
closed.
A reason why I don't know what I certainly do, have anxiety where like I will wake up at 3 a.m. being like, is that enclosure closed? Did I close it?
I don't do that.
Oh, I do that. That happens to me all the time. I think I have a few more escape stories than you do, so that might be why.
Yeah. I think I have 3. I think you have what, like 6?
I have 6.
So your turn. Pass it over to you. Tell 2 of yours and then I'll come back to me.
So in light of, your chameleon getting out, my chameleon, Barney, got out one time. It was only the one time that he ever got out. And this one was fully me being irresponsible.
It happens.
So it was like a Saturday, and my first 2 just happened on Saturdays, I guess. But mine happened on a Saturday, and I was going to a pool party at one of my friends' apartments.
Love it.
And I had like a drink or 2 at my place with my roommate, like before I was going to this party. Yeah, I was pre-gaming. And so I had him out while I was like drinking and hanging out with my roommate, and had him out, hanging out with him, feeding him, like whatever. I was, doing stuff. I leave and I go to this pool party. Mm-hmm. I come home, definitely not, 100% sober.
What to be expected for a pool party. Yes.
100%. And I come home and I walk into a dark reptile room because it's like, 8 or 9 at this point. And so I walk in And I'm just looking around and I'm like, oh, his door's open.
Like open?
Completely open, like wide open.
Not cracked. Okay.
Not cracked.
Yep.
AKA, I was dumb.
Let the panic set in. Yep.
So I start panicking. And luckily, this panic only lasted about 5 seconds because, pro tip, specifically with chameleons, just wait until they're asleep and look up. Look up. Just look up anywhere. They will be up. They will not be down. Yes. I mean, if they're down, it's very unusual, but they will be up high. And he was sitting, same thing, on his mist king tubing at the top. Because this was when anybody who remembers like my OG TikTok days, I had my 2 like walls of reptiles like in a corner. And so the mist king tubing went from one side to the other. And so he was right in the middle on that mist king tubing, just fast asleep.
I always tell people when they lose their commands, because this happens more often than you think it does.
It does.
And you're right. Look up high, but I also say look on cords, like on TV cords.
Anything
or
that's like the perfect size branch for their little alien feet.
Yeah. And looking at nighttime is helpful because chameleons specifically will turn a lighter color. So they're more easily spotted typically than their daytime darker colors, especially 100%. If they're potentially stressed or in a new environment because they're outside their enclosure. Odds are, or they're a little chilly, so then they're turning darker to try and absorb heat, so that works in your favor to look at night.
And if they're awake, during, like if it's during the day, you know, they're more likely to hide behind that branch or wrap around or whatever. And so when they're asleep, there's no chance of that.
They're just
they're just chilling. Chunky. Usually their belly's hanging over that little tubing or the branch or whatever.
I know. Well, I'm glad you found him.
Yeah. So that was my one. That was the only one where, you know, alcohol played a role.
It happens to the best of us.
So let me think. Okay, so my next one, this is actually one that I forgot about and you reminded me of recently.
Yes.
And so this one was when I got Taz, my scaleless corn snake.
Who was also a little peanut when you got him.
Oh, he was like thinner than my pinky finger, you guys. He was so skinny. So skinny. And so...
Wait, real quick. Was it Taz who you brought to my birthday dinner?
Yes. That's an important part of the story.
Okay, so let me just put this little caveat. I had a birthday dinner where you invite like a few of your friends, you get your dinner reservation. You had just gotten Taz and you're like, hey, I hope this is cool with you, but it's okay if I bring Taz with me literally in his snake bag inside the restaurant.
Directly from the store. And it
so
was
only you and I know at this table of like
10
people that there is a corn snake just chilling
in my lap
in this restaurant.
And the reason that he had to get put in my lap was because it was, I think it was in like the winter. It was your birthday. Yeah. So it was very cold and this restaurant did not have good heating or whatever. I just remember it was very cold. So I was freaking out because he was in like the bag on the floor, like in my purse. And I was really, really nervous because it was starting to get cold. And I was like, I don't want him on the floor. So at some point in the middle of your birthday dinner, reach down and pull him up and put him under my shirt and just sit like this with all of your friends. Like
just eating dinner.
There's whole snake in my shirt. Right now.
But if this is not the epitome of like a reptile friendship, like, I don't know what is. Like,
it's literally like just the definition of our friendship. For sure.
So anyways, this happened. Then you bring Taz home.
I brought him home.
My birthday dinner.
And also, mind you, this was in my like mid to late 20s. So this was like my prime like party stage. I was like going out doing things with friends all the time. Yeah. So I was having friends over that night after your dinner. And because you were there, weren't you?
I don't remember.
You might have
had
other
plans. This is a few years ago now. Yeah.
But So I brought him home, and anytime I get a new animal, I always do like a quarantine setup. So, and usually that's a tub because usually it's like
sterile.
It's sterile. It's easy. I have a million of them on hand. So when I went to put him in his quarantine tub, I had drilled holes in the lid of this tub, right? Very normal. And those holes I was really particular about had to be small enough that he could not get through them because like I said, thinner than my pinky finger, you guys. So he was so skinny. And so I was like nervous about it, right? So I put him in this container. I have him all set up. I'm letting him chill for the night. I'm not going to bother him. I'm going to go out with my friends. They're all coming over. Yeah. So my friends come over. And I'm like talking to them. I'm like, I just got my new snake, like blah, blah, blah. So my friends want to go see the snake, obviously, right? Yeah. So I wasn't going to get him out because I'm not going to bother him when I just got him all set up.
Leave him alone. Yeah.
So we go upstairs and I turn on the light in the reptile room And guess who was sitting on top of the tub that I literally just put him in?
Yep.
On top of the tub.
Little Taz.
Like, what? How?
But I just imagined him just like, hey guys. You know?
Literally, so I had to scramble in front of all my friends, mind you, to scramble to basically find an alternate solution before we all leave my house.
Yeah, I was not there for that.
Okay.
I feel like I would have been in cahoots with like figuring out what to do. So
for some reason, I thought you were there. I think it's because I was literally at dinner with you right before that. So like my friends start freaking out because they're like, how did he get out? Is he gonna? And I'm like, and I'm sitting there like, I have to problem solve. Everybody shut up. And so I'm like freaking out because I'm like, I've got like 30 minutes to like figure this out. So luckily like I had like a different thing that I ended up getting set up for it, and it all worked out. It was totally secure and safe, and it was fine.
But like, I was had you not gone in there to like out, show him off,
I would have come home to my brand new snake gone.
And you likely would have not come home from like a night out and then like checked on.
Oh no, I always do.
Oh, okay. Well, depending how like intoxicated you were, like
that's accurate. That's accurate.
It might have been just like a one and done, like just go straight to bed.
This is true.
When you were coherent enough, then you would check on them. But
for sure,
there is a small possibility that you would have not looked and you would have just like crashed, gone to sleep, and Taz would have been like, who knows where. My
brand new baby snake would have vanished.
Who knows where? Yeah, like, that would have been crazy.
Thank God I had friends over that night, and they like wanted to see him because. Terrifying.
What 24 hours. Poor little Taz.
Terrifying. He went through a lot. He went to a birthday dinner. He had an escape. All in like the
2
5
enclosures.
hours. That was within 5 hours of me getting him.
Well, crazy. He's lived an uneventful life since then.
Crazy. So. If we've learned anything, it's the fact that I now do not get animals in the middle of lots of plans.
That's probably for the best.
So
we should do a story time of like how we got all of our pets too. I think that would be fun. So my next story time is the craziest one that I have.
I'm trying to remember it. I don't know.
So this is with Pluto, my crested gecko. And as any crested gecko, he likes to be on the front glass chilling.
Always do. It's where they love to poop too.
Yeah, it's fine. And so I was swapping out his food for the night, and he's on this glass. So I just like open it, and it does this nice little creak, you know, and he's chilling there, and then I'm like swapping out his food. Then what does homeboy do? Take off. Just like pew, running. And like crested geckos are quick little boogers. And so he's like running, and then he ends up on my wall. Just because they've got those sticky fingers,
and
you know.
How tall were your ceilings?
Very, very tall.
Very tall.
I don't even know what the average ceiling height is.
Average ceiling height, I'm pretty sure, is between like 8 and 9 feet.
What would you say was the height of those?
They were. I mean, because you were on the top floor.
Yeah, so like 12 or 13
feet.
They
were easily 12-foot ceilings at a minimum.
No way I'm getting up there.
No, it was insane. Like you sent me photos and videos of this as it was happening, and
because I was freaking out.
Well, which is fair.
So
when you don't even have a ladder that big.
He was on the wall. Now, at the time, I had Pluto's enclosure sitting right next to my Chameleon enclosures, which are up against the wall, but not flush against the wall because they have all their cords running behind them. So there's just enough, like 2 inches, which then Pluto climbs behind.
Giving me anxiety.
And I'm trying to go to bed, okay? So I'm like, this is way past my bedtime. I do not need to be trying to get my crested gecko, who in the past has tried to fight me. So I'm like not too keen on just like scooping you up.
Right.
So he's like now behind what would have been at the time 3 Chameleon enclosures.
The worst.
I can't reach him.
No.
I physically cannot, without moving 3 fully set up Chameleon enclosures.
Of course not. Of course not.
There's no way for me to get to him. So then I get a stick. Because I'm like, I got to basically like poke you to get like you to run out of there.
Yep.
So then he finally does. And now he's in my kitchen because this is a studio apartment. And he's now above my counter like cabinets.
Oh, yeah.
In these like crazy high ceilings. So then I put on dish gloves, like dishwashing gloves. Because again, he's trying to bite me and I'm not too keen on getting bit. And that just made me feel better about the whole thing.
Yes.
And I climb on top of my counters and then go up above my cabinets, which were super dusty. And I was like, should probably clean these.
Love that.
And finally got him and put him back in his enclosure. But that was like very stressful.
That is easily one of the more stressful situations.
This is why I will not own a day gecko.
Oh, no.
As much as I think they are stunning geckos.
No, they will dart everywhere.
No way. Like the electric blue ones, would love to own one. Absolutely. Yeah. But like because of
they fly.
My experience with Pluto, and I know day geckos are like on another level. Yeah. So I'm like, no way.
They're times 10 for sure.
So now if Pluto's chilling on his door and I can't get him to move, I'm like, well, you'll eat tomorrow because I'm not risking it.
No, absolutely not.
So, or I just crack the door and I'm like, just put his food in. Super quick. And I'm like, don't move.
Insane, dude. That one was wild because he was just completely out of reach for like a while.
Yeah.
I mean, that was...
I'm like, I can't just leave you there.
No, you literally can't.
Because I'm like, because then if I go to bed, like who knows where you'll be now? So then I'm like flashing my light, trying to keep eyes on him.
In my opinion, the worst reptile escapes are the geckos, the arboreal geckos who can like scale walls, and snakes. Because I personally think that they are like some of the hardest to find when they get out. Because chameleons are fairly easy. We'll get to the next one, which is Nilla, my blue-tongued skink. She's fine. She can literally get out whenever she wants, and I will always find her. It's like not a big deal. And she's got such stumpy legs that she can't really get into anything.
There's only so far she can go.
Yeah. Like she's so limited. So speaking of her escape, she has had at least 3 escapes.
Should name her Houdini.
Yeah, like I said, she's one of the ones that I'm just like the least worried about when it comes to getting out, because the rooms that I've always kept my reptiles in are very secure. So it's like there's only a few certain places that they could go. You know what I mean? So like when she has gotten out, it's been very minimal. She was like, under one of the chairs and then whatever. But the one that I want to talk about is actually the very first time that she got out. And
this is a good one.
Strap in. So I'm just chilling in my bedroom, right? And anytime I was home, my reptile room doors would be like open. But if I wasn't home, because my roommate had a dog, I would just shut the doors. And so that's what I mean. If I'm not home and they get out, they're very secure. They couldn't really get out anywhere. And so I'm sitting in my bed and I'm just hanging out. I don't think my roommate was home, and I knew that like her dog was in the reptile room, and he was just sniffing around. He's not bothering anybody. And sometimes he liked to, sleep on my little carpet right there and stuff. So all of a sudden he starts barking, and I am hearing a really loud hiss, like a very loud hiss, like a hiss that I have never heard from any of my animals before. Oh. So I don't know why. This is insane of me. I will admit this. This is so insane. But my first brain thought was that there was some kind of wild animal in my home.
Oh, you didn't think it was any of your critters?
I did not think that it was any of my critters, because the hiss that I was hearing between, like, the dog was barking and then I was hearing a hiss. It didn't sound like a snake hiss, but I've never heard any of my lizards make that sound.
Right. And so your brain is unfamiliar with it.
My brain immediately was like, is there a raccoon in my house? Like, insane. I've got 10 animals at home. Why would there be a raccoon hissing at our dog? Like, that's crazy.
What could happen?
No, it was insane. It was an insane thought. Like, I'm looking at myself in hindsight, and I'm like,
maybe like
an
opossum or something.
That's what literally my brain was thinking: raccoon, opossum, like something like that. Anywho, it was not. It was Nilla.
It was Nilla.
She had gotten out, and luckily my roommate's dog is like the chillest dog. He didn't even try to like go after her at all. So it wasn't a big deal. She was completely safe. He just sniffed her out in the closet. She had gotten into the closet and she was like just behind some boxes in there. And so she was completely safe, like behind the boxes. And the sweet puppy, I love him so much, was just like barking at her, and she was hissing. And so I went in there.
Don't blame her.
But I was freaking out because I thought it wasn't one of my animals. I thought it was something else.
Yeah.
And so I like ran in there and start like looking things around, and I start looking at all my enclosures, and I realized her door was open. Just by like 3 inches.
What did we say earlier? The number one way.
Just lock your doors. Shut your doors.
Yep.
Don't be dumb like me. And so.
Or me.
Yeah. And so she was hidden behind some boxes, just hissing at him.
Yeah.
And and he definitely spooked her. So I gave her some time. I put her away and let her relax, and everything was fine. But that was a scary one for me, because for whatever reason, you walked into the
unknowns. Yeah,
I literally thought it was a different animal in my home, because I had never heard her make a hiss that loud.
I would have done the same thing.
So loud. I've never heard her hiss like that, even since. So that was a crazy one for me.
Yeah, glad that all worked out okay.
I know. That was actually a really scary one, because if the dog was any other dog, I mean,
Right. It could have had a very different ending.
It could have had a bad ending. And luckily the closet was like, the door was barely open. He was like barking through the door. So it wasn't.
Right. So he wasn't actually like confronting her.
They had literally no contact, which was good. But could have been a bad situation. And specifically with people who have cats, it definitely will not end that well.
Or other dogs too. I've
heard nightmare stories.
Yeah.
So it's, I mean, you know, I'm lucky that my dog is
keep your enclosures closed.
Yes. Yep. I'm very lucky that my sweet dog is scared of every animal that he has seen. So I know that he would not go for one.
No, I don't think Ember would go for it. Yeah. She's curious. She would for sure get up in their business. But
I don't think Campbell would.
Oh, she's kind of ballsy though. She's like no fear.
Ballsy.
So
she's like, very ballsy.
She'd put her nose right up in there.
No, Campbell's a giant chicken. He has sat on my couch and watched me like feed some of my animals, and like he has seen them, and he's just like, what? I don't know what that is.
No, Ember will press her nose like up against the enclosure, and I'm like. She's just she's not like antagonizing, but she's like
she's curious.
Sniffing. Yeah,
completely fair.
And Neptune's like, and I'm like, Ember, stop stressing
Leave
out.
him alone.
Neptune.
He has enough stress in his life as it is.
By now, you guys know we're big fans of Pangea Reptile, and every month they come out with their different sales. For the month of May, they're coming out strong with their crested geckos on sale, including their lily whites.
You can't miss a lily white, guys. I'm literally still dying for one. So that's huge. But they're also even releasing some brand new isopods like the white shark, red panda, and blue pigeon isopods.
I have to check those out.
I've never even heard of those. They sound amazing. And their Memorial Day sale is going to be huge with some Pangea products, cork bark, all the Reptile Systems products, and more.
For all of our chameleon keepers out there, their Repti Breezes and T5 fixtures will be on sale. So be sure to take advantage. Head over to PangeaReptile.com and shop their sales. It can be hard when you're first getting into reptiles to know what to buy and find a kit that actually has everything you need. Luckily, I've partnered with Pangea Reptile to make a chameleon kit that includes all the supplies you need to properly raise a pet chameleon. I created 2 different kits. The first is the basic kit, which has all the essentials including the proper enclosure, heat and UVB bulbs, supplements, a hand pump mister, and more. And the second is the advanced kit, which includes everything the basic kit comes with, plus a Miss King mister, plant LED light, and fogger. The kits are available on my website, neptunethechameleon.com, and while you're there, you'll also find step-by-step tutorials, discount codes, and the answers to commonly asked questions. Thank you in advance to anyone who decides to purchase a kit, shop through my affiliate codes and links, and for tuning into the podcast.
Hey guys, it's Lyssa. You know I'm all about bioactive reptile keeping, and that can be a challenging new adventure to start. I remember when I first started, and there are so many different components you need to focus on, and it can just feel really overwhelming. But luckily, I have some great resources to help you guys out. First are my idea lists, which are basically shopping lists on my Amazon storefront. I've put together all of these lists for most of the commonly kept reptile species like leopard geckos, ball pythons, New Caledonian geckos, northern blue-tongued skinks, and several others. Each list includes links to the majority of what that species would need for the perfect bioactive environment. My last resource is discount codes. I know reptile keeping can get really expensive, so if you're looking for some great discounts, always be sure to check my link tree, which is available in my social media bios at Lyssa's Lizards.
So my last little story time, and this is probably the least exciting of them all, so I apologize, but I think it's a good word of caution for anyone who's listening. So I was free ranging my chameleons, and I have a fake tree from Home Goods that I put them on, and it's got a good 6-inch tub that it's planted
base,
in. Yeah. And one of my chameleons was Apollo. He was trying to climb down it, and he wasn't able to until he got bigger, which goes to your story time with Charlie. And eventually he was able to climb off that, and then he ended up elsewhere, again, just in my reptile room. But the panic when I didn't see him on his tree anymore, I was because I didn't think it was possible for him to get off the tree. So I had peace of mind knowing that he was safe on his tree, and then he wasn't on his tree and he had climbed off.
That had happened to Barney a couple of times, but it wasn't going down to the bottom. He never went down to the bottom. But he would get over onto my desk.
Both Apollo and Venus have done that. And I'm where'd you go?
Well, it's just the initial panic of seeing them where they're not supposed to be.
And then I find them 2 feet over, and I'm okay, you're fine.
It's a very momentary panic. Yeah. So I have 2 more. And I'll go in chronological order. So the next one was Yoda, who, if anybody doesn't know, I previously had a leachie gecko named Yoda. If you want to hear more about her story, you can go to our grief episode and there's more info there. But so I had her and she had gotten pretty big at this point. This was like kind of, towards the end of having her. And it was late one night. I had closed the door, but I hadn't latched it all the way. What I had done, so it depends on what enclosures you have, but I forget which ones this one was, but the little dial that you turn to kind of close both doors had somehow only gone up over one of the doors. So because of her weight and how heavy she was able, I'm pretty sure what happened was when she jumped on that door that didn't have the dial turned all the way.
Yeah.
It swung open.
What if she did it on purpose?
Easily could have.
Like Life with Pets or whatever it is, and they're like trying to break out. Like, I'm just imagining Yoda be like, this is my chance.
Oh, yeah.
And then just like body slams against the glass and then pops it open.
Oh, for sure. And so I wake up and this all happened overnight because I had been doing my reptile chores the night before. And so, like I said, I had like done the dial. I just didn't realize it didn't click all the way. And so again, just,
keep them closed.
Shut your doors properly, and I didn't even realize that was a thing that could happen.
Yeah.
And so I walk into the reptile room bright and early one morning and I just walk in and the door's wide open. I'm like, oh. And then I go to see what happened and I can physically see that the latch was only on the one door. And so I immediately realized she had just jumped on it and had swung it open. And so I immediately start looking around. And again, this is an arboreal gecko that can climb. And so I'm like, great, she could literally be anywhere.
Look up high.
So I start freaking out and I start just thinking through the process. And this is just like a tip, like think through the process of like, depending on where their enclosure is, like where are all the possible places they could reach. And so I start realizing this was when I had my racks. I was like, okay, she probably like went up the rack and then to the left. I mean, she could have gone to the right, but because of how the door had swung, it like made more sense for her to go left.
You're like a detective.
You have to be. It's like you're panicking and you're like, okay, what's the process? It's like a CSI investigation of like, okay, where are the clues? And she had actually knocked over. I had some like stuffed animals and some plants on the top of this rack. So I knew that she had gone that left because I also saw one of the stuffed animals on the floor.
Evidence.
Nice. Yes.
Follow the trail.
A clue. So I like see the clue and I get excited. So I start like walking that way and then I go to open up the closet door. Splat right on the inside of the closet door. I swing the door open and I actually didn't notice it right away. I opened the door and I walked into the closet and I just start looking for clues. And I'm like, okay, is there anything here? And I turn around and she's just on the closet door, on the inside of the closet door. And I was like, hey, honey.
When do you want to come down from there?
Yeah, let's get you off of there. Let's get you somewhere safe.
Wild.
So that one was crazy. And then the next one isn't crazy at all, but it does have like a really good tip with it, is actually in the house that we're in right now, which we've been in for less than a year. So this one happened like last summer. This is like my most recent.
I don't even think you told me about this one.
I don't think so either. I also did not tell my husband. So sorry. And it's because Hazel, my current biggest snake, got out. And this was another one where I'm 99% sure it was me. I left her enclosure door open. It's a sliding one. And so I left it open. I think I only left it open like an inch or two. And I think she pushed it open further because she's so strong. She could easily do that. And so, because I know how far open it was, I know I did not leave it that far open. So I'm pretty sure she, with her body weight, was able to slide it over a little further. But I did not even, this one I actually didn't even notice the door before I found her. And so if you've seen my reptile room now, it's like I've got my one wall on the left and then I've got my couch in the middle and then I've got another wall started on the right-hand side. But the wall on the right-hand side, all the enclosures are on the floor because I don't have my racks anymore. And so I was just walking around, like looking at stuff, hadn't even noticed that her enclosure door is like 3 or 4 inches open, nothing. And I start walking over towards Charlie's enclosure and I'm like, doing stuff in there. And I stand up and I see something big and tan in the corner by all the electrical stuff behind Kermit's enclosure.
Yeah.
And I was like, no. Like there's no way.
Yeah.
There's no way. It's her in a ball sitting on top of the electrical cords.
It's probably nice and warm.
Nice and warm. So that's the pro tip. Anytime any of your reptiles get out, always check anywhere that is warm. They're going to go find heat.
Yeah, heat sources.
So that can be dangerous because they can obviously get burned on different things, but look for the warm stuff. But she was just in that corner. And as soon as I saw her,
you look over at her enclosure.
And I see that it's 3 or 4 inches open. And I was like, I didn't even know. Like, I had no idea.
Stop. You did not tell me about that.
I think because I was embarrassed because I was like how did this happen?
Die with me.
How did this happen? Then I just share it on the podcast for the whole world. But yeah, I didn't even tell Logan about that one because I was like, I didn't know how he would react. So I've told him since, but I didn't tell him for a few weeks on that one.
You're like, we're going to ease into that one. Yeah.
So because we had just moved in together too. So I was like,
right, you don't need to put this
on. And with the one exception of Taz in a temporary enclosure, I've never had a snake get out.
Right.
So I didn't want to be like, hey honey, we just moved in, but one of the snakes is out. The biggest one.
I guess I guess something someone could do if they really want to make sure is like have physical locks, which
for sure.
You could do. They're just annoying to deal with.
They're tedious. And that sounds like I'm being irresponsible. Tarzan is 100% going to have a lock once he's bigger. But right now he's so harmless and little. So it's not that big of a deal. But once he hits, and I'm also really big on if we have kids, there will be locks on any of the bigger, just different situation. And so, it just depends on what you're comfortable with. And, for me, none of my reptiles are venomous. It's not
I don't have locks on any of mine. Don't think I ever will.
The room is super secure. There's very minimal things that they could get hurt on in that room.
Yeah, I will say having a dog now does make me a little more nervous because the most recent one was Venus had gone off of her tree. Yeah. And I didn't know where she was. Yeah. And the door to my reptile room was open. As soon as I saw Venus wasn't on there, I immediately created Ember. Yes. Because I was like, not that I think she would do anything, but she's a dog, right? Yeah. I don't...
You have no idea how they're going to react.
Yeah, and I don't know how Venus would react. So I was like, and plus it's just one more thing for me to worry about. And so I was like, let me put Ember in her crate. I know she's nowhere to be found. And then I found Venus in a matter of minutes.
And on that note,
that was what made me panic though.
I would have too, is Ember being out. Yeah. And so just on that note, a precaution that I have, we have a gate at the top of our stairs that is always closed if we aren't up there. So not only are I have doors, but the doors on my reptile room don't fully shut really well. Yeah. And so because of that, we have a gate at the top of the stairs. And the only time that Campbell is in my reptile room is when I am in there. So he has zero access unless I'm in there. So it would have to be something pretty extreme for him to be able to find one of the critters. They would have one of them would have had to make their way downstairs, which is pretty unlikely. So, but yes, having a dog is definitely. Yeah. I feel full confidence that Campbell would cower and run away. Because
especially if Nilla's hissing at him.
He is not. Freak out. Yeah, he's so funny. But
sorry,
you
just the mic.
You just never know. So it's best to be
Take precautions. Yes. Learn kind of tips and tricks on your species where they're most likely to end up. Hopefully this was helpful. If nothing else, entertaining. Yeah, because I feel like some of these were pretty funny.
Learn from our mistakes.
Because none of them have poor endings. They all have happy endings. Yes. Everyone was found in a matter of hours. Yes. No one was gone for minutes, honestly. Days at a time. There's some people who free range their chameleons outside, never to be found again. Yeah. Reptiles that escape get eaten by family pets. There are some horrific scenarios. Yeah. So we are only stories. Laughing about this because it had a happy ending.
We had positive outcomes.
Yeah. But okay, are we good on
I think so. Yeah.
Escapee?
Those are all my stories.
Story time. Yeah. So we opened it up to some Q&As from you guys, which are honestly one of my personal favorites.
I love doing the Q&As because you guys have some great questions. So
yeah. And it feels interactive.
I know.
So this one is coming from Mad Bio Reptiles. Yeah. They have their own podcast as well.
Check them out. The Reptiles With podcast.
So the question that he asked was, what reptile intimidates you?
So for me, it's actually going to be, I'm kind of going to clump a few.
You gotta pick one.
I was just going to say arboreal snakes.
Pick one. Pick a
arboreal
snake.
Out of all the arboreal snakes, the emerald tree boas are the ones with the biggest teeth.
I was going to say green tree python.
Oh, okay, yeah.
For very similar reasons.
Yes.
Because of the
fangs. For me, it's actually not so much. I mean, the fangs are a factor, but for me, it's more how quick they are to be defensive because they're arboreal. Like,
I don't even know that much about them. I don't even know that behavior
so for
about
you,
them.
It's simply the fangs.
That is a reason enough alone that I'm like,
Yeah. So for me, it's more just about, they're just naturally very, very nippy, because if you think about it, them being arboreal, it's kind of like chameleons, where,
chilling.
Like birds are one of their biggest predators. And so like, they're always kind of like on the ready.
Yep.
And so they're very quick to be defensive, and that spooks me. But I will say I'm sorry, I'm having to.
Breaking the rules.
I'm totally breaking the rules. But the other one is iguanas. Iguanas terrify me. And I have great respect for my friends who have iguanas.
Okay. I have an opinion on this because as someone who owns chameleons, and I'm just going to go on a tangent. We're just going to go for this. The amount of times, and this is nothing to them, and I totally get not everyone knows about reptiles.
Yeah.
The amount of times I've been introduced to someone who knows I have chameleons. And they're like, oh, this is my friend. She has iguanas.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, no. I do not have an iguana.
No.
And it's because iguanas are a species that are also intimidating to me. And to your point, I have so much admiration for iguana keepers because that is such a daunting species to take on. And then you compare that to a little old chameleon. I'm like, this is not the same.
What's super funny on that note is the amount of times that people's bearded dragons get referred to as iguanas. That is like a huge internet thing.
Okay, but at least like, those are both like
spiky
horizontal.
Yeah.
A chameleon enclosure and an iguana, they're both lizards. Yes. However, that's about where it stops with
iguanas are actually more arboreal than you may know or think.
But they're not in the sense of like a chameleon, like straight up vertical enclosure, because they would have the width and the height.
Width and height, but most people I know who properly keep iguanas have them in a 6 foot tall enclosure.
But is it also like 6 foot wide though? Like it's
usually like 4.
Oh, okay.
Well, it depends. It depends on how big the iguana is.
The ones I've seen have been more kind of like boxy shaped versus like
that's fair,
vertical shaped.
Yeah, but iguanas absolutely need arboreal space just as much as the horizontal.
They got the talons to climb around and stuff.
Literally, like iguanas in Florida fall out of trees during the winter because they're all in the trees. Yeah, so they're big climbers.
But the amount of times I've been introduced as like, oh, she has iguanas, and I'm like, no, I don't.
No, iguanas terrify me. I'll be really honest. The tail whipping and the claws and the
claws
teeth,
are enough for me that I'm like.
All of it for me with the iguanas. I think they're amazing. I've been around some amazing iguanas. I have been around some very docile, very chill, incredible iguanas.
Yeah.
The specifically the male breeding season iguana very much intimidates me.
No, thank you. Okay, those are our answers. Yes. Let us know which one intimidates you. Could be a chameleon or a bearded dragon.
Hey,
who knows?
Defensive chameleons can be intimidating. Neptune in particular can be intimidating. So.
I would say he's all bluff, but he's not. He'll bite you.
I know.
Okay, next question comes from Hannah's_herpetology. They ask, what has been your biggest challenge as a reptile keeper so far?
Ooh. Do you want to answer this one first or me?
I would say this is like a mood change, but like the loss that comes with.
Yeah.
And like specifically coming from the perspective of being a chameleon keeper, which is notoriously known for having a shorter lifespan than other reptile species, is like a really, really hard thing. And knowing also that their death or loss can come out of nowhere. It's not even a life expectancy thing. It could be like literally, and this is just the nature of exotic pet keeping.
It totally is.
And keeping species that are for survival, I get it, hide their illness, and that just puts us in a hard spot. We can do everything right, and it feels like that's not enough to save them. Even if you have the finances and the best exotic vets in the world, like it can still be not enough. That's really hard.
I would say as somebody who over nearly 6 months later, I'm still not over the loss of my chameleon. Being real honest, that's top of my list as well.
Yeah.
But for me, the other challenge that I would say is that I would say for the last like year and a half, and I've talked about this before, but I've just really struggled with not feeling like I'm doing enough for my reptiles.
And this is not just you. We hear this all the time from other keepers, other content creators. Like this is something that is not, which like, I don't think that makes it any better. Still sucks. Yeah, but you know, like this is something that like, so if you guys are listening and you're like, me too, like
just know, like we feel that way too. Like, it's for me, I have been unhappy with my reptile enclosures for definitely over a year. I would say like I had a lot of improvements about a year ago, and then like those kind of, are not as good now and things like that. And so I'm just in this journey of making a bunch of upgrades. I keep feeling like I don't have enough time. I keep feeling like I have other things going on that take precedent. And it has been a priority, but there have been other things that have popped up that have taken priority. And so I'm constantly mentally beating myself up because I feel like my enclosures aren't where they should be, and they're not as good as they used to be, and they're not where they should be right now. And I'm constantly guilt tripping myself for that. And so that is easily my current biggest challenge.
Yeah.
So
reptile keeping is not for the faint of heart. It's a tough hobby.
It is not.
So rewarding.
So rewarding,
but definitely has its challenges.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We'll round it out with one more. This is coming from Evie _ with a couple periods thrown in there, amateur photography.
Oh, cool.
They asked, what's one thing you would change about the reptile community?
Oh, I feel like we're going to have a similar answer on this one.
We are, because we talked about it beforehand.
Yes. So this one is, I genuinely wish that more people in the community were kinder to new reptile keepers.
Yep.
And that can be tricky because I know a lot of us in the hobby are, we want to focus on responsible and ethical reptile keeping and improving the care standards and doing all of these things. But we have to understand and be realistic about the fact that everybody starts somewhere. And it's we should research, but
the delivery of it though, right? Like I see where people's intentions are coming from.
Yeah.
But to come at someone like hot, right? Just be like, yeah, you should have.
Right.
Versus, hey, have you considered this? Right. Did you even know this? Can I share some resources with you? Right. Giving kudos. I mean, compliment sandwich, right? Yeah. Like, congrats on your new animal. So excited for you.
I can tell you really love them.
Yeah.
Have you thought about this?
But the delivery, the criticism, the judgment that we see towards new keepers, even experienced keepers, is just, it's hurtful. It's not helpful for the hobby.
It goes too far.
It scares new keepers from wanting to ask for help in the future.
That's that one though. I think that is the part that I hate the most.
Because it's terrifying, because then it's going to come at the cost of the animal, because the person has been scared off. We see it all the time on social media, in the Reddit groups, the Facebook groups. They're in particular notorious for just coming out blazing. Yep. And I know people are passionate and they have the animal's best interest. The delivery though.
And let me say too, as somebody who has definitely made TikTok videos like that, address some of these things and like go like not, I wouldn't say that I necessarily like have made videos going after people, but I've definitely made videos on people who have made it very clear that they are like refusing to make changes and things like that.
Yeah.
So like I understand at a certain point it gets to where it's like I cannot help this person, so I want to like spread awareness. Like I understand that to an extent. I have done it myself, but it's something that I am like actively trying to not do these days because I don't want people to be discouraged in the hobby. And I don't want new keepers who have one reptile to never want to get one ever again because they just got harassed on social media.
Yep.
And so it's something I am also trying to do a better job of as well, because I have definitely like made videos like talking about certain things or, people doing certain things that they shouldn't be doing and stuff like that. And a certain level of that is okay. But it's like you said, it's the delivery, because we don't want to scare people off from this community.
So the one thing I would change is just like leading with kindness. And it's easier said than done. And it's hard when you feel like you're talking to a brick wall, or that your recommendations are falling on deaf ears, or someone doesn't have the finances to make the changes that are necessary. And then you feel frustrated, or like you've repeated the same things to different people. It just feels like a lost cause. Or we get DM'd all the time, right? Pictures of sick animals. Like, it's so easy to fall into the trap of like being frustrated and just being snippy and quick to like figure it out, whatever. Like,
fully admitting I've done it.
I will catch myself when I get in that point, and I'm like, when it was the last time I ate, because typically I'm hungry, and that's why I'm getting snippy with people.
That makes a ton of sense. Yes.
But as long as I've eaten out, like, Kate, too, I need to cool off.
Yeah.
Like, this is not productive for this person or this animal or me. When I'm just having to like repeat myself, I'm like, hey, maybe the way that I'm saying it, or can I give them different resources? Or I'll ask people, I'm like, do you learn best from podcasts, videos, or articles? And I will send them whatever is necessary for them, because I'm like, I no longer have it.
That's a great question to ask people. That's a really good little tip.
That's and sometimes I'm like, hey, I got to tap out. Like, I cannot continue this one-on-one conversation, but let me point you in the direction of some resources that honestly are going to repeat whatever I say anyways. So then they can be set for success, work on their own time. I was like, check this out, then come back if you have any questions. Like, there's so many other ways you can go about it that are productive, constructive, but still positive and helpful.
It's hard. I mean, like I said, I've fallen into that trap. I definitely can occasionally have a short fuse if I'm hungry as well. So, it's
just snacks.
It's just, I think we all need to lead a little bit more with kindness, specifically with new or inexperienced keepers, because we all start somewhere. We all make mistakes. I mean, hell, I had my leopard gecko on calcium sand for, 4 years. So it's like...
But if someone had come at you and be like, you're a terrible keeper, you should have known better.
I mean, thank God I didn't have social media back then, honestly.
Like, you would have just like crawled in your hole and like would have never asked for help and never would have made changes. So
So
we could go on and on about this.
That's what we would change.
Be nice.
Yeah.
But I think that's a good stopping point for the episode. So thank you guys for tuning in to the podcast. As always, be sure to give it a thumbs up, leave us a review,
subscribe, do all the things
on the socials. Do you want to plug your voice message?
Yes, please leave us voice messages. It's my favorite thing ever.
Yeah, we'll take Q&As though in the meantime. Those are
Q&As, voice messages. Honestly, just DM us, ask us questions. Like, just because we, didn't. Depending on whether or not we have a story up for Q&As, you can send us your questions as they come too. So that's always an option.
Also, I want to give a shout out to all of our subscribers for early access and Patreon members. Like, that has been super cool to see all that too, because you guys get excited about them. So
it's been fun. You guys always tag us like when the early access comes up, and we appreciate you.
So thank you guys for tuning in. You can follow the podcast at the Wild Type Podcast. You can follow me at Neptune the Chameleon.
Lyssa's Lizards.
We'll talk to you guys later.
See ya.